Hello everyone! A new short story of the Voices Within collection is available on the WoW website. The Goblin Way, written by Andrew Robinson, linked in the description down below. As before, I'll do a summary of what I found most important, and then we'll do a full readout. This time done live on stream, so you can see all the faces that I make while reading a story. In short, we read about Monty Gazlowe, Trade Prince of the Bilgewater Cartel, leader of the Goblins, inspecting a mining operation run by Noggenfogger, head of the Steam Weedo Cartel. We probably know best from Classic, as he became famous for his Noggenfogger elixir, would go on to play a role in the Rogue Order Hall during Legion. Gazlowe has always been more about paying his workers fair price and investing in that long-term profits instead of the short-term one, instead of having overworked workers that is considered the Goblin Way. He wants all goblins to come together and lift each other up, instead of trying to tear each other down for those short profits. At first, Noggenfogger is like, nah, thank you, I like the Goblin Way better. Even if I wanted to, I've got other cartels, other investors that are circling around me. Doing it better or differently, it would cut into profits, which they would feel as well, giving them enough reason to strike. But what if Gazlowe would back him up? What if they would stand together? And throughout the story, Noggenfogger opens his eyes to Gazlowe's ways and decides to follow his lead. A chance for Gazlowe to show how he envisions the future for the goblins now that Gallywix is gone, and a chance for these two to get closer to each other. In the realm of speculation, the fears that Noggenfogger has about other cartels trying to make use of these changes, it might lead to future adventures where we'll actually have to deal with them, secure the future of the goblins, something like undermine the goblin capital that we wished for during Battle for Azeroth. It might actually make it into the game now, but that's future talk. For now, here's the full readouts. I hope you'll enjoy. By Andrew Robinson, it's The Goblin Way. Monty Gazlowe sighed, looking out over the vast mining operation from his spot on the platform above the mine's South District floor. This was his 5th fact-finding tour of the week, and it seemed like he'd been going non-stop for months, taking stock of less than desirable working conditions among the goblins. This one was easily among the worst. Though Marin Noggenfogger, Gazlowe's host and guide, acted like everything was above board. Noggenfogger waved for Gazlowe's attention, looking out of a place in a miraculously unsullied, all-white suit that practically gleamed amid the smoky air and rancid, dripping space. It was clear he'd recently taken over this operation. "Over here," he called. Then he turned to one of his bodyguards for help. "Is the, two-shift work in the, long wall shitter?" Gazlowe offered, and Noggenfogger grinned. "Yeah, what you said. The Rock Chomper 3000. Beautiful piece of machinery, eh?" He beamed more broadly as he gestured down into the enormous mine at its steam-powered behemoth. Its fearsome metal teeth ground relentlessly into the bedrock to get at the vein of iron ore that was the lifeblood of this operation. "You gotta lean over the railing a little to really get a good look, unless you want to go down and see it up close," Noggenfogger added, beckoning Gazlowe to the platform. Gazlowe stepped closer to the railing, waving off his orc bodyguard, Fakan. Unlike some goblins, including Noggenfogger it seemed, Gazlowe had no fear of heights. As the shitter brought ground ore to the surface, Gazlowe leaned against the railing to watch workers, mostly goblins and some orcs, operating walking mechs with steam shovels, which loaded ore into minecarts, which would take it to a processing plant. A number of workers had bandages wrapped around their limbs, likely because of the discarded machine parts cluttering the footpaths, and a few let out fits of wet, throaty coughs while clamping soiled rags over their mouths. Noggenfogger gave Gazlowe a fidgety smile, nodding as if to say, "Nice, eh?" Gazlowe peered back down, and then a section of the railing detached from its mooring with a screech and swung out, leaving nothing but space between Gazlowe and a deadly fall. He teetered for a moment before regaining his balance, with the help of Fakan, who shot out a beefy hand to grab his collar and haul him swiftly backwards. Gazlowe whipped a glare at Noggenfogger, his pointed ears rigid. Had this been Noggenfogger's aim? To stage some sort of accident? As newly installed head of the Bilgewater Cartel and de facto representative of his race to the Horde, Gazlowe was aware that he had enemies. but he honestly hadn't thought an attempt on his life would come this soon, let alone be this ham-fisted. Gazlowe narrowed his eyes. Look, Noggenfogger, I don't know what you think you know about me, but I don't die that easy. At that, Vakon planted himself between Gazlowe and the mine boss, scowling. Whoa, Trey Prince, look! It's me, Noggenfogger, right? I would never do that! In fact, I'm as shocked as you are! For what it was worth, Noggenfogger had gone a deadly shade of pale green. Though whether this was from the realization his murderous scheme had failed, or because it was truly taken by surprise, Gazlowe couldn't say. Believe me, he said, surveying the platform. That was an accident. This calamitous breach of construction will not go unpunished, let me assure you. Vakon took a step toward Noggenfogger, cracking his knuckles with a deep grumble. But Gazlowe put out a hand to stay the orc. He had no reason to trust Noggenfogger. In fact, at this point, he knew that he couldn't, but he did see that the head of the Steamweeder cartel was at least as unnerved as he was. Before the tour, Noggenfogger had made it quite clear he hadn't even wanted Gazlowe down here. While flipping through the financial statements, he offered Gazlowe more than one drink. And knowing Noggenfogger's reputation for poisons and elixirs, Gazlowe had repeatedly demurred. He'd only begrudgingly arranged for a brief overview of the operation at Gazlowe's insistence, rambling on about how his time here was limited for the day, what with having a whole other city to run. Ultimately, Gazlowe had used the power of the Horde to strong-arm Noggenfogger into agreeing. With a practiced eye, Gazlowe was certain that the platform had been assembled hastily in the last few days. He ground his teeth together. This is the problem I keep encountering, he murmured to Vakon. Our people are smart but erratic. Genius ideas, inconsistent execution. We solve difficult logistical problems, but all too often, it's the fact that we don't pay attention to the details, to quality control, that undoes our best efforts. The orc crossed his arms and grunted in agreement. In the wake of all that had happened since the disappearance of the former leader of the Bilgewater cartel, Jester Gallywix, Gazlowe had taken pains to inspire the people in his cartel to aim higher and to convince others to do the same. He promoted those who paid attention to detail, who tightened bolts an extra turn and measured twice before they cut. He paid his crew before anybody else, and the results spoke for themselves. He'd always been known for getting things done, and he'd never disappointed. He looked over at Noggenfogger. For now, I'm willing to believe you didn't just try to off me. For now. So, lead on. Noggenfogger gave a relieved smile. Smelting and sluicing up ahead, next juncture. They walked on towards an opening in the distance, stepping over oily puddles. This kind of thing, Gazlowe said, waving one hand to indicate the entirety of the mine. A lot of hordes doesn't respect goblins. Noggenfogger blinked his beady grey eyes. Gazlowe ducked under the sagging support beam. Some folks think we're unreliable. He pointed back towards the broken railing. Greedy. He fixed Noggenfogger with a pointed look. Disrespectful. That assessment strike you as accurate? Truth be told, those prejudices deeply bothered Gazlowe. But before he could tackle the Horde's opinions, he would first have to change how goblins perceive one another. This mine was a microcosm of a larger problem. Rushed jobs, shoddy craftsmanship, poor upkeep, overworking people, and management smiling broadly was siphoning off a fat paycheck, Bobby Kotick. And Noggenfogger barked a bitter laugh. Ha! Like their hands are so clean, he snorted. Anyways, we hold our own just fine. Most goblins aren't even part of the Hordes, or the Alliance for that matter. They value their independence too much. As they approached one end of a vast chamber, Noggenfogger began yammering on about how smoothly things were going, praising his own management. I tell ya, the engineers are always doing engineering stuff. We got explosive guys working explosives. We got drillers, delvers, diggers, and drivers. I started shifts going day and night. And nobody leaves till the quota's been filled. Ha! None of them want to get paid. Gazlowe nodded, scoping out the miners. The overseers worked with enthusiasm. shouting threats into bullhorns, but the pace Gazlowe could see, it showed the telltale sign of overwork. Here and there, diggers stopped to lean on their shovels. Gazlowe, one of the best engineers of his generation, could see indications that the steam-powered ore shearing machine wasn't operating properly. He could hear a piston misfiring. He could see and smell the acrid smoke that told him the engine was burning more oil than it should. An audible rattle suggested that the rock chomper would need repair sooner rather than later, and he could see the same issues throughout the cavern. The place was full of death machines and more death machines. Gazlowe picked his way down a slope, crumbling with debris, and approached the miner, transporting ground ore into a cart with a wheelbarrow, not far from a rocket-powered drill sitting idle, dripping some kind of noxious-smelling goop into the dirt. The worker spilled his haul and swore. "Hey, pal. Over here. How's it going?" The miner wiped a blackened hand across his sweaty brow and rested on his shovel. "Well, to be honest," he started, but stopped when he saw Noggenfogger peering down at him. Noggenfogger wore a carefully neutral face. "Go ahead." "Splitspark," the miner grimaced. "Sir," he added hurriedly. "Splitspark. That's right. Tell Mr. Gazlowe how it's going down here." The worker glanced at his overseer, whose stony face was an unmistakable warning. It's Aces! As great as Mr. Noggenfogger. Oh, I couldn't be happier. We're moving ore like nobody's business, so he motioned to the wheelbarrow. I gotta get back to work. Those quotas ain't gonna fill themselves." He busied himself with collecting his spilled haul. Gazlowe motioned toward a barrel of water. "Sure you don't want to rest? A drink?" "Oh, no, I had some water yesterday. Thanks, though." Noggenfogger smiled and beckoned Gazlowe away. "You see, hunky-dory. Happy miners, happy engineers, happy drivers, happy drill bits, happy customers. And my operation is clean." Gazlowe glanced at Vakun, who'd just blown a loud snort of offense and disgust. "Look, Foggy. Noggenfogger. Yeah, whatever." "Whatever? Nah, that's a goblin being disrespectful. You seem to be forgetting I'm leader of the Steam Weedle Cartel, Gazzy." Gazlowe cackled. "And you seem to be forgetting that I'm Trade Prince of the Bilgewater Cartel. So lying to my face, is that really how you want to start this relationship?" Noggenfogger sputtered, and his bodyguard started to unsheath truncheons, but Noggenfogger waved him to halt. "Well, that's about as much time as I got for today," he said. Gazlowe climbed back up the hill of debris to join him. "Let's say we keep going." Noggenfogger bristled for a moment. "With respect," he growled. "I didn't think you'd be here for so long. I got meetings and whatnot to tend to in Gadgeton, so, We're doing this," Gazlowe assured him with a smile, gesturing for him to continue leading the way. "With respect. I'm sure you wouldn't let Gadgeton get this bad, would you?" Noggenfogger mumbled and guided Gazlowe further into the mine, their bodyguards trailing them from a distance. "I know what you're trying to sell me here, and I'm not buying it," Gazlowe said, climbing over the collapsed pipe. "What I'm seeing is your people are overworked and underpaid. Your engineers and tinkers ain't motivated. Your machines ain't getting maintained properly. And that's dangerous." Noggenfogger started to object. Gazlowe raised a finger, then pointed back to where they'd left the shearing machine. "I can hear the bolts rattling on that rock chomper. So the most generous interpretation here is that this guy's great with elixirs and potions and whatnot, and he's even used to Majoran. Maybe he doesn't know anything about mining, and a little bit too much about the bottom line." Noggenfogger snorted. "Ah, the bottom line is king. Nobody cares about maintenance. They care about the results." Gazlowe grabbed the hand of the nearest worker, revealing the same angry, bandaged wounds he'd seen on Splitspark. Skipping maintenance impacts results, with your people as much as your machines. How can you expect your engineers to grip a wrench with hands like these? Sure, we got a lot of work calling sick, but that's any job, Noggenfogger countered. Gazlowe sniffed deeply, and felt the rank rasp of oily fumes in his nostrils. And the air? You know it ain't good. You're using cheap fuel and rancid oil. You gotta burn cleaner. Get the ventilation systems up. And to try and pass this off as a clean outfit? Come on, foggin' niffler. Noggenfogger! Marin Noggenfogger! And Noggenfogger glared. And it ain't a lie. I'm clean. Most of the stuff doesn't rise to my level of oversight, so I got plausible deniability of all that mess. And Gazlowe glared back. That ain't what running a clean operation means. Clean means you're not polluting. Noggenfogger's eyes went wide, and it hastened to smooth down his pure white suit, which become increasingly wrinkled and stained with greasy droplets. Oh, well, then no. The work is also natural, vapor. What am I supposed to do about it, huh? That's what you call a misunderstanding of frankly confusing terminology. Gazlowe gestured for Noggenfogger to cross a creaky catwalk first. Noggenfogger hesitated far too long before obliging, then Gazlowe followed. Look, this ain't just about your bottom line. There's more work we could all have from the hordes. Maybe more folks too, if we could run a tighter outfit together. But how am I supposed to talk to a shaman or a druid with your mind belching out this smog? How can we convince clients you're reliable when you got workers out every day with injuries like that? Look, you come in here, you got no idea what I had to do to get to where I am. You think it's easy scheming your way into a mayorship? Or the top slot in the steam wheel? The palms I greased? The elixirs I concocted? And Gazlowe laughed. That don't make you special. I rose through the steam wheel systems just like you. Besides, your rivals and enemies seem to mysteriously go toes up a lot more than the average. Allegedly, Noggenfogger corrected. Gazlowe cocked an eyebrow. Seriously? Okay, sure. I may be the best alchemist there is. Noggenfogger backpedaled. And I got my famous elixir and the occasional other stuff. But that ain't the point. I had to compete with the likes of Gallywix and the Venture Company, and now I'm the boss here. So I should get to call the shots. Me. And a lot of other goblins believe that if I don't take things this far, I'll be replaced. Or worse. Besides, I didn't see anyone making Gallywix clean up his acts. No one stops the Venture Company, but I'm the bad guy. Gazlowe paused. I know, you know, what happened to Gallywix. I know he had to split, but he's got nothing to do with Steamweedle or this mine. You, had occasions to deal with him running Gadgerston? Yeah. He was a bastard. I hated his guts, but I respected how he did business. Did you? Did you respect how he took advantage of his own people and put them to work in his mines? After taking everything they owned in exchange for transport away from Mount Gazlowe when it was erupting during the Cataclysm? Yeah, harsh, but that's dedication to profits. That's what's going on here. Allow me to explain something. Having injured and sick workers using poorly maintained machinery, it eats into the bottom line. It's short-term gain for long-term loss. Fixing your tools now, having happy, healthy employees now, it's an investment. And a damn good one. This ain't how we've always done it. Gallywix wasn't a businessman. He was a con man and a criminal. Profits above everything else. Ain't good business. A lot of people wanted him gone. His own mother tried to assassinate him twice. He solved a lot of problems, but he made worse ones out of them. He got stuff done, but he wrecked more. I asked him once if it bothered him, taking advantage of those refugees and working his own people to the bone. You know what he said? It's the Goblin Way. Supply and demand. Deal with it. Noggenfogger shrugged. That is the Goblin Way, right? No, it ain't. That was Gallywix's way. The Goblin Way is invention, innovation, partnership. Those things cost a lot, but they earn a lot for every goblin. Not just a few, Gazlowe said. I swear, you're missing my point on purpose. Supply and demand is one way to do things. But we can't only be thinking of just ourselves no more. The world is changing. There's nothing wrong with how I run this mine, Noggenfogger protested. Maybe it's no day at the spa, but production's up ever since I took over. Noggenfogger's attitude put Gazlowe in mind of another goblin leader that he hoped to forget, because his legacy was as bad in its own way as Gallywix's. Notorious all over Azeroth for their lumber and mining operations, which was to say, clear-cutting forests and strip mining areas, leaving barren scars across the lands. And the way they operated their oil rigs was reckless at best, not to mention their arms dealings with groups that neither Horde nor Alliance found palatable. Heard of Mogul Razdunk? Gazlowe inquired. Of course, former head of the venture company. We modeled this operation on theirs. Of course you did, Gazlowe thought. Razdunk was aggressive, he said. But again, he didn't consider the repercussions of his actions, and it caught up to him. He oversaw the venture company through expansions in Mulgore, the Stone Teller Mountains, Kaltiras, Grizzly Hills, Sholazar Basin, and Stranglethorn. But here's the thing. Everywhere they go for the quick buck, it pisses people off. And folks find a way to fight back, to make it harder and harder for them to do business. Pretty soon, everyone there is attacking them. But they just keep doing it. Noggenfogger looked less certain. That's the market though, right? Business is business. Gazlowe shook his head. Business is personal. When you wreck someone's home, that's personal. And it's bad for business. They'd arrived at Sluice Town, a collection of tin shacks that stood hard up against the sluices that ran already dirty water over the crushed rock to create a slurry that would separate ore from waste. The ore was run to a massive smelting plant, which melted the rock and purified the ore into metal. This was even worse than Gazlowe had expected. The dim lights flickered badly. The air was oily and still. His eyes burned a little. Gazlowe wheezed. You gotta get this place ventilated. The air, you gotta know, this ain't sustainable. Sustainable? Noggenfogger scoffed. What do you know, a shaman? Gazlowe shrugged. I've been called worse by better people, but I'm glad you mentioned it. Part of why I'm here is that the elements themselves have taken offense to stuff like what's happening here and what the venture company does. I'm hearing Azeroth is about out of patience with us, and you, Mayor of Gettyston, leader of the Steam Reader Cartel, and yeah, head of this operation, you gotta take your share of responsibility for that. Noggenfogger harumphed. Gazlowe had seen enough. He gestured, and Noggenfogger led them back into the shearing cavern, where Gazlowe called out to a goblin working a machine. Hey pal, how many times has that machine broken down, huh? This week? 5, he replied plainly. And how much production time has that cost you? The goblin resignedly turned his palms skyward. Gazlowe turned his ire back onto Noggenfogger. And exactly how many sick days have your employees taken because of injury, poor conditions? Noggenfogger hesitated. Well, you know about as much about your operation as Razdunk did. He thought he was gonna get rich and become a trade prince. What he got was blown up by Gallywix. Don't worship these jokers, Gazlowe said. Don't model yourself on them. There are better models. Look at the Horde Council. Noggenfogger scowled. How'd you get on the Horde Council anyway, hey? What makes you so special? Nothing. The difference between me and the other trade princes is that I don't think the world is just here to feed me. I learned a while back. You do better when you don't make it all about you. Noggenfogger looked put upon. So what? You arrive, tell me what I'm doing wrong, and then throw me to the wolves to fix it? I get the short ends, and you go enjoy tea and crumpets? Meh. I don't much like crumpets. Look, I know we got a steep uphill climb, but if we don't change our business, and I mean for all of us, all the goblins, not the mine, we're gonna get left behind. We need to start lifting each other up instead of seeing each other as competition. And I'm hoping that you and I can start together. Noggenfogger took a step back. His beady eyes went wide, and then he scowled again, suspicion written all over his sallow face. And now it makes sense. It's not enough you got the Bilgewater under your thumb, and probably still some of the Steam Weedle, and your pals in the Horde to back your play. You want my little mining operation for yourself. I ask for help, you move in and take over. You're as bad as Gallywix. In fact, you're worse. At least he was honest about how downright foul he was. Gazlowe sighed, pinching the bridge of his long nose. I don't want the mine. I didn't want to be head of the Bilgewater cartel. I didn't want to have to represent all goblins to the Horde. I mean, between you and me, it's a lot of pressure. He gazed at the whirring shearer wistfully. I could just be watching speed bar races, he mused. And why are you taking, huh? There are plenty of goblins who'd kill your whole family for either of those. I'm probably one of them. Gazlowe looked sharply at Noggenfogger, but the mine leader didn't care. You got them both, Noggenfogger concluded. Some smart guy once said, if somebody really wants to be the boss of everything, under no circumstances should he be allowed to have the job. He stared fixedly at Noggenfogger, and Noggenfogger looked abashed. Because they're only in it for themselves. Gazlowe smiled. He can be taught, and Noggenfogger snorted. Yo, you can't tell me you don't enjoy all that power. Oh, make no mistake. Being powerful is better than being powerless. If I wanted to be bigger than Gallywix, I could have that. I'm honestly not interested, but like I said, it's more about the responsibility. The other reason is you want something done, you ask a busy person. What's that supposed to mean? The council chose me because they knew I get things done. Plus, Gazlowe added, they know I'm a goblin of my word and loyal to the Horde. Big deal! I've got loyal friends in the Horde. Now we both know that ain't true. Even I was selling to both sides for a while, and there's plenty of goblins who just think gold is gold. Noggenfogger smirked. Well, you can't spend honor, can you? And Gazlowe turned away. Noggenfogger furrowed his brow. Look, what you're saying is great, but how I run things here, it's just how it's done. As if on cue, the sound of a mechanical grinding filled the air, followed by an explosion. And plenty of shouting. The huge shearing machine's engine was venting steam, and the workers carried injured operators to safety. Noggenfogger swore, deliberately avoiding Gazlowe's gaze. This is gonna hold up production. Hey! He screamed at the workers. Back to work! Somebody fix that! Tinkers and engineers gathered around the machine, which continued to smoke. Head machinist out injured! One worker shouted. Two other workers lifted blunted and broken tools, exchanging looks at defeat. Noggenfogger looked on, helpless. Whatever else you might be, Noggy, Gazlowe urged. You ain't dense. I think you maybe could turn this place around, and I can help you. But you gotta be willing to play nice. And not just with me. Noggenfogger looked unmoored. Our whole system is built on competition, not cooperation. It's how we solve problems. Survival of the fittest, the cleverest, the most ruthless, the best deal makers. It's how we innovate. Why are you trying to fix what ain't broken, huh? Oh, it's broken. And I'm gonna show you why. This ain't the Goblin Way. They headed closer to the blast radius. The bodyguards joined them. As they approached the drilling site, the workers saw them coming and gave way to clear a path. Gazlowe could hear murmurs and knew the workers were confused that he was there. Heck, they were confused that Noggenfogger was in attendance, if not there to threaten them. Gazlowe approached several engineers gathered around the open hood of the engine, and Noggenfogger followed. All right, what's going on? An older goblin in grease-stained overalls glared. Don't get your pantaloons in a twist. He stopped when he realized to whom he was talking. Oh, Mr. Noggenfogger, sorry. Look, this beast is long in the tooth. We've been washing out filters instead of replacing them. It's gunked up.
The vibrations take a toll. I mean, we've been tightening bolts left and right, but eventually the threads get stripped and they just won't hold. The gaskets are kind of shot and the differential keeps slipping. This machine alone's gonna make a fortune to fix. I can't afford to have this offline for long, Noggenfogger told Gazlowe. My clients expect shipments on the regular. This will put me behind. If you let me take some of that heat, will you put in the work here? Gazlowe asked. Noggenfogger looked grim, but there were no better options before him. I'll give it a shot. Gazlowe took a step forward toward the machine. Tinker, right? What's your name? Eily Sprecknozzle. You're Mr. Gazlowe? Call me Monty. Yeah, Sprecknozzle. You know Skagit? Used to be head of the Tinkers Union here. He's one of my crew. I think he's mentioned you more than once in the positive, Ollie. Sprecknozzle cracked a grin. He's good people. Then he looked hesitant. Look, excuse me asking, but what are you doing there? What are you doing here? We, Gazlowe gestured to himself and Noggenfogger, are here to help. Oily screwed up his face. No offense, but this is a mechanica thing, not a, He paused, clearly seeking a word that wouldn't offend. Not a big shot thing. Bosses don't help, they boss. And Gazlowe grins. Let's see if we can change that particular perception. Noggenfogger was at least savvy enough to grimace non-committally, so as not to actively antagonize the crowd. His bodyguards and the miners were both on edge. Still, Gazlowe continued. As it turns out, Ollie, I happen to be a fair engineer myself. Mind showing us the problem? The Tinker hesitated, clearly not used to the deference from bosses, and then shrugged, motioning one hand towards the engine. At that, Gazlowe removed his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. He gestured to Sprecknozzle's tool belt. I didn't bring my own, Ollie. You mind? What are you doing? Noggenfogger hissed, pulling Gazlowe aside. Gazlowe stooped beside the broken machine. What does it look like? Fixing this thing. You're gonna make me look bad. Well, hell, Noggenfogger. You say you're a good leader and hustler, so hustle. Get your people in here to help. Gazlowe paused, an idea taking shape. In fact, yeah, one of them elixirs of yours. It literally makes people tiny, amongst other things. Break out whatever stash you got. Give it to your tinkers and engineers and actually get them in there to help me fix it. Noggenfogger gaped. Sorry. Give it to them. For free? He hissed under his breath. The ingredients alone. Big picture. Gazlowe glared at the mine leader, who gritted his teeth, wrestling with the idea. Fine. Noggenfogger stumped off. In the next half hour, Noggenfogger, somewhat reluctantly, returned with a case of his special elixir and gave it to a platoon of somewhat reluctant machinists, engineers and tinkers who had volunteered to help Gazlowe fix the rock jumper. They got to work. Gazlowe was in element now, under the hood, solving a mechanical issue, oblivious to the growing crowd of workers trying to figure out what was going on. Noggenfogger looked on, tapping his foot, glancing around. He moved alongside Ollie. Sprecknozzle, the workers who got hurt, how many? 4, Mr. Noggenfogger. Tell them, Noggenfogger winced, that, with no admission of culpability, mind you, I'm gonna take care of them. Like, medically, I mean. I've got something to make them right. Ollie looked at Noggenfogger as if he'd spoken gibberish. He opened his mouth to respond, but had trouble finding words. That will be a load of their minds. Noggenfogger nodded. A gap-toothed grin spread across Ollie's face. Let them know, sir. Noggenfogger took a deep breath, then addressed the crowd. This may take a while, but don't worry. We'll get this fixed as soon as possible, so you all, you take the rest of the day off. The workers didn't quite know how to respond. With pay, he said with a sigh. And the crowd cheered, even as most of them stayed. There was entertainment value to what was happening now. Gazlowe, working on the engine, smiled in the darkness of the machine's underbelly. His plan had worked. Hey, Noggenfogger,
he called out. You want to see how to fix one of these things? Noggenfogger stooped beside him. Yeah, he said, peering into the open engine compartment where the Tinkers were gathered around Gazlowe. I'd appreciate it. And Gazlowe grinned. Maybe this was going to work even better than he'd thought. After his team added a greasy solution of one thing, replaced a few stripped gears and cracked bolts and gaskets, as well as doing some preventive maintenance, Gazlowe turned the final screw, stood and wiped his hands on his pants. That should do it. He nodded, and the machinist pulled a lever. The machine began to rumble and putter before it let out a healthy whir. Noggenfogger let out a sigh of relief. The workers looked on in a bit of shock and surprise, while those who had helped out from the inside congratulated each other once the elixir wore off and they regained their size. Noggenfogger's bottom lip puckered out as he regarded the empty case of his famous elixir. Then he studied Gazlowe warily. You're serious? You want to help, not take over? Gazlowe nodded. Knew you weren't dense. Though you may want to reconsider wearing white when making your rounds next time. Noggenfogger sagged a bit. Okay, I'll admit, I could use the help. But you know how tough it is to change things. Could I pay my people more? Some, I guess. At that, a few workers within earshot gave him reproachful looks. Healthcare? I don't even know what it looks like. I'm from America. Sorry. What in the Blizzard Union story is this? Okay, healthcare? I don't even know what it looks like. We could find a place for a clinic or something. Maintenance I get, but I don't have enough Tinkers as it is. And the ones I got ain't worth a bucket of warm spit. A Tinker behind him scowled, mumbling a profanity before stalking off. Gazlowe shrugged. Or they're feeling misused and therefore not giving you their best. And maybe you don't remember what this is like, Mr. Horde Counselor, Noggenfogger said. But I got people around me. People who don't like profit margins getting eaten into. If I can't produce, they'll find someone who can. Can you help with that? Besides, if word gets out that I'm going soft, what happens then? Then, you got an opportunity to show them what's what. Noggenfogger's nostrils flared. I'm serious, Gazlowe. You know what I'm talking about. Other cartels, other trade princes, they're always just looking for a sign of weakness to pounce. And you know they'd see me doing all that, costing us money and going for the kill. Gazlowe took that in. Okay, you may have a point there. Damn straight I do. What if Steamweedle had Bilgewater backing your play, taking a little heat off of you? The two biggest cartels working together, and you'd be working from a position of strength. Noggenfogger weighed the offer, weighed his trust. In the meantime, Gazlowe added, maybe you could put the big alchemy brain to work on the opposites of a poison. What? An antidote? Gazlowe snorted. No, genius. Cures for diseases. Health potions. Medicines. Oh, right. Well, I already got some things in the works. You weren't thinking for free, were ya? Gazlowe crossed his arms. Sure was. But I'd consider it more an investment than a giveaway. Noggenfogger cursed under his breath. Lot of work. Yeah, fine. His eyes lit up. Plus, it's a whole new revenue stream. let him call me soft then. He looked at Gazlowe. You don't want commission on that, do ya? And Gazlowe chuckled. I'll give you that one for free. Noggenfogger nodded, now grateful. I guess I appreciate you coming down here after all. Gazlowe regarded Noggenfogger. Humility is a rare quality in a goblin, especially in a boss. Tell me you're not a lost cause. Noggenfogger squinted. I'm not sure whether you just complimented me or insulted me. Gazlowe smacked his lips. What about that drink? Will you show me the real books? Noggenfogger winced. You saw through that one, eh? Gazlowe sipped from his glass of Badlands bourbon in Noggenfogger's well-appointed office, which overlooked the mining operations like an eyrie. Noggenfogger had opened the ledgers, the real ones this time, he assured Gazlowe, and it was pretty much as Gazlowe had suspected. Crafting, insufficient reinvestments, and skimming from the workers. Standard operating procedures for Goblin bigwigs for as long as Gallywix held the reins. In fact, it wasn't just Noggenfogger taking a bite out of the profits. Other bosses were as well, meaning it could be dangerous for Noggenfogger to rock the boat. If so, he could lose more than money by making it stop. I see room for improvements. You see how much I'd need to do? Noggenfogger leaned back in his armchair. Even if I play it totally straight, upgrading the machinery, putting all those safety regulations in place, healthcare, paying folks more, I'm gonna be in the red in no time. Rebuilding this place, it's gonna cost a fortune. And it's not just my profits that will be affected. Maybe things are different in the Horde, but the other goblins, even trade princes, they have others trying to get their cut. And everyone who gets a cut will be looking to get things back to the old way. Gazlowe sipped his drink. Like I said, I got a reputation as someone who gets things done where the Horde is concerned. Noggenfogger wrapped his long nails on the wood desk. Thought you sold to both sides? At a certain point, I realized that while gold might spend the same, what happened with the things the gold bought didn't always feel right. Something changed in me after Garrosh was defeated, and I got summoned to repair the damage he left behind in Orgrimmar. You been? Noggenfogger shook his head, and Gazlowe continued. I was chief engineer there for a while before I started up Wretched for Steamweedle. Thrall himself asked me to survey the damage. You've met Thrall, right? Thrall the war chief? He's not war chief anymore. Noggenfogger grimaced. I've seen him from a distance once or twice. The guy's larger than life. Not that I'd ever tell him this, but I was still a little in awe. I've seen plenty of leaders who ruled by violence or fear, or by outmaneuvering their opponents and their friends. Seen leaders who ruled through moral arm twisting. But Thrall, he's different. He's decent. Noggenfogger cocked a skeptical, bushy eyebrow. I mean, not for nothing, but he named the city after his best friends. He named the continent after his dad. Gazlowe considered that. Alright, fair point. But they had to name things something. Anyway, Thrall could have been war chief as long as he wanted. He could have ruled the Horde and maybe the world. But he never seemed to want it. And he's so earnest. Noggenfogger gestured impatiently. So he brought you in, gave you the 5 copper tour, and the place was a mess. But between all that destruction, I noticed Thrall greeting people by name. Hundreds of people. Somehow he knew the names of folks so far beneath his station that they should have been invisible. The big guy just radiated compassion? Empathy? Whatever it was, I'd never encountered it from anyone before. And everywhere he went, these people who had their homes, their lives, everything destroyed, they trusted him to help set it right. That trust. It was something I didn't see enough of between our people. We finished the tour, the drag, the bank, the Valley of Strength, a Zeppelin Tower, and he asked me how much it will cost to rebuild it all. Better than it was, Gazlowe concluded. Now I realize he's in a bind, and he came to me because, well, I'm the best. Plus, I've helped out before, he trusts me. You had him over the barrel. That's one way to look at it. Thing is, the way I want to do it, mixing materials, building stronger and whatnot, means more labor, more machines, higher shipping costs, and so on. And I gotta make a profit too. I got mouths to feed, so I gave Thrall my bid for the gig. Should have seen his face. Didn't go for it. He was, set back on his heels, hard, but I explained what needed done, and he agreed to convince the Horde. Noggenfogger fleshed his teeth. Heh, sucker! The point, Gazlowe rubbed his forehead frustrated, is he treated me as an expert, a master of my craft. I named the figure, and even though he was unhappy about it, he didn't haggle, didn't argue me down,
showed me respect. The leader of the whole freaking horde. I guess that's hard to come by. It's exceedingly rare, my friends, and hard-earned. But you and your crew at least gave him their money's worth. Gazlowe gazed at Noggenfogger, who now seemed even more receptive to the message he needed conveyed than it seemed earlier. I'm gonna tell you something I've never told anyone before, he said, leaning in. And Noggenfogger leaned in as well. This is where big picture thinking comes in, Gazlowe explained. Since he showed me respect, he made me want to earn his respect. What I understood at that moment was Thrall would do anything for his people. And I was gonna do everything in my power to make sure that my people did the best work we'd ever done. That's what he does. You get to know him, and he makes you want to live up to his standards. Unlike Gallywix. Well, like I said, Gallywix was a sociopath. He offered to do it cheaper, but no. Thrall came to me. So what you do? Gazlowe made Noggenfogger wait for it. I dropped my price for him. Noggenfogger stared and then shook his head. Gazlowe chuckled. You should have seen his face then. Like, it didn't compute that a goblin, first, last, and only thought, wasn't just filthy lucre. You're telling me you didn't make bank on that job? Oh, I made a profit. Just not as much as I could have. Point is, it made the war chief respect me more. And I assume he didn't keep it to himself. I'm hoping it was the first step to changing how everyone else in the horde sees us, and maybe how we start looking at ourselves. He pointed down at the repaired shearing machine. That accident down there? There was an accident when we were rebuilding too. Folks from all the races of the horde pitched in to help and get things back on track. Everyone and everything was taken care of. Seeing that changed how I looked at the world and what I wanted out of it. To be part of something bigger than outdoing the guy next to me, Gazlowe continued. My whole crew will tell you we were proud of the job we did. And we're even prouder that we did it for the horde. He tipped his glass to Noggenfogger. Now I want to share that with you. And Noggenfogger frowned. You want me to be proud of being a goblin? I want all of us, Gazlowe waved his hands to indicate all goblins in general, to be proud of being goblins. I want us to be proud of what we can build. And I want the horde to be proud to be associated with us. I want us to start looking to the future, to stop treating each other as enemies and understand that not everything is transactional or a zero-sum game. He leaned back and put up his feet. What we did back there at the site, did you see how that mattered? Yeah. No, I don't know. How? Gazlowe gave a genial smile. Because nothing changes the atmosphere. Nothing gains your people's respect like a boss who wants to help and is willing to learn and compromise. It will move mountains. Noggenfogger squinted at Gazlowe. I still can't figure out your angle. No angle, buddy. If we don't start helping each other, we're gonna tear each other apart until there's nothing left of us. Noggenfogger didn't argue now. He looked as introspective as he was ever going to look. At that, he raised his glass. To a new way. To a new way.